It's been a while, but welcome back to another episode of Marxist Propaganda. Ladies, gentlemen, and others, she hath returned. Hallelujah. 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 Margaret Dumont is back. Today we're looking at Duck Soup, the first Marx Brothers movie that I ever watched. Long story short, I wanted to watch a different film, which I'll talk about when we eventually get to that movie, but the only film that I could find at the time was Duck Soup, which was on demand on Turner Classic Movies, so I did, and it's probably why I ended up finding the marathon that would be running later that month and queued every single Marx Brothers movie I could find up on my DVR. Animal Crackers might be my favorite, but if it wasn't for Duck Soup, I'd have never have seen any of them. And while this is a movie of triumphant returns, it's also the final film to feature two major players. It's the last film the brothers made at Paramount. In fact, they had a lot of contract negotiation disputes prior to making Duck Soup because of behind-the-scenes shakeups and fears that Paramount might not pay them the money that they were owed for their previous work. And it's also the final film to feature Zeppo, as he would leave the group after their contract was up and went on to become a theatrical agent, a career that was very good to him. Now, I can't find anything as to why Margaret Dumont left or why she returned, although my guess is that the fact that after Animal Crackers they shifted production from New York, where Dumont was a prominent stage actress, to Hollywood in California, might have had something to do with it, or perhaps Paramount wanted a younger, sexier straight woman in Thelma Todd, but that's just wild speculation on my part. I have no verification for that. Regardless of the reasoning, I'm glad she's back, and there's only a very small number of future films that she's left out of. Duck Soup is also another film where the title is a reference to archaic slang that might confuse modern viewers. Like horse feathers was slang for nonsense, Duck Soup was slang for something that was easy to do, though I've never heard it used before. Groucho himself said on the Dick Cavett show once that he didn't know why that title was chosen. Other than that fact that production was reportedly tumultuous because of those aforementioned contract negotiations, there's not much to talk about, so let's get right to it. The movie starts out strong, with the titles actually showing the making of Duck Soup, and probably how to get campylobacteriosis. Also, the film was apparently sponsored by the NRA. Ironically, unlike NRA TV, this film is hilarious and silly on purpose. Anyway, it starts out very strong, with Mrs. Teasdale, played by the incomparable Margaret Dumont, handing over the reins of Fredonia to Rufus T. Firefly, played by Groucho, since their economy is in the toilet and they need Teasdale's loan to survive, so the government is forced to let her elect her own leader. At the ceremony to introduce his new excellency, it goes about as you'd expect. After the introduction of our antagonists, Ambassador Trentino and Vera Marcal, along with Zeppo as Firefly's secretary, once again named Bob Roland, and a pretty nice song.
He'll make his appearance when the clock on the wall strikes 10.
With Firefly making his fashionably late appearance in classic slapstick fashion.
You expecting somebody?
Yes.
As this is another strong starter, we go right into the jokes, and this film has some of Groucho's more memorable quotes.
Say, you cover a lot of ground yourself. You better beat it. I hear they're going to tear you down and put up an office building where you're standing.
I held him in my arms and kissed him.
Oh, I see. Then it was murder.
And those are just my two favorites. The entire sequence is gold, but I can't just play it for you because of the copyright bots. I got into a lot of trouble with horse feathers. That's kind of why this video took so long to make. I didn't have the head to go through it again so soon. Firefly doesn't like Trentino from the start and immediately antagonizes him.
Don't look now, but there's one man too many in this room, and I think it's you.
He also doesn't really like Vera Marcal either.
Sometime we get a chance to dance together, huh?
I could dance with you till the cows come home.
Yep.
On second thought, I'd rather dance with the cows till you come home.
Firefly also gives a little hint as to what his reign will be like.
These are the laws of my administration. No one's allowed to smoke or tell a dirty joke, and whistling is forbidden.
Rumor has it that's also how Jimmy Carter started his presidency. Firefly has an appointment to get to, and his driver Pinky, played by Harpo, shows up, and in classic slapstick fashion, Firefly's sidecar is left behind as Pinky speeds off. Trentino's plan is to take over Fredonia for the glory of his country, Sylvania, and attempted to engineer a situation where Sylvania could swoop in and take over under the guise of friendship with their economic downturn, but it failed. Plan B is to find some dirt on Firefly, which Trentino attempts with his top spies, who turn out to be Pinky and Ciccolini. In order to afford Zeppo's new name, someone had to use their own, and, well, Chico drew the short straw. Much like the Coconuts, the scene of their introduction to the narrative is chaotic, as is usual for these two.
He gets mad because he can't read.
Trentino demands to know what they've figured out so far, but it doesn't go so well.
Tuesday we go to the ball game, but he fool us. He no show up. Wednesday he go to the ball game, and we fool him. We no show up.
Trentino gives them another shot and some credentials to help out. Inside Firefly's office, a cabinet meeting is being held, but just like government bureaucracy, nothing gets done.
I wish to discuss the tariff. Sit down, that's new business. No old business? Very well. And we'll take up new business. Now about that tariff. Too late, that's old business already.
In fact, so little gets done that one of the cabinet members resigns.
That's the last straw. I resign. I wash my hands of the whole business.
I'd say that's a new record, but the US government has seen such bad employee retention in the last 4 years that I'd be surprised if that guy didn't at least last longer than Scaramucci. While they're spying, Ciccolini and Pinky get into an altercation with a man who runs a lemonade stand.
Now, just for that, I'm going to tear you limb from limb, limb from limb.
And all because they asked for grapes. They also play a fun game of musical hats.
Take them, do the same.
I'll say one thing, Mr. Before one of you.
Ciccolini, through his patented technique of being incredibly annoying, gets hired by Firefly to be the Secretary of War. I would say that was the worst cabinet appointee I'd ever seen, but again, after the last 4 years. This also serves as one of the wordplay scenes.
How would you like a job in the mint?
Mint? No. I don't like a mint. What other flavor you got?
What kind of an army do you think we ought to have?
Well, I tell you what I think. I think we should have a standing army, because then we save money on chairs.
In order to get rid of Trentino, Firefly and Roland conspire to cause an international incident to force him to flee the country and head on over to Mrs. Teasdale's tea party to enact their plan.
Step on it.
Trentino and Vera discuss their failures thus far, and somehow, Firefly makes it to the party to interrupt Trentino attempting to seduce Mrs. Teasdale. Unfortunately, instead of making Trentino strike him, Trentino insults Firefly so much that Firefly slaps Trentino and puts the two countries on the brink of war. That doesn't stop Firefly from leaving in triumph, though.
Oh, no, you don't. I'm not taking any more chances. You can only fool a Firefly twice. This time you ride in the sidecar.
I love a good running gag. Trentino tries to prevent the upcoming war, but right when he gets Firefly to agree to forget the whole thing, Trentino provokes him again and war is assured. And with Firefly having given the plans of war to Mrs. Teasdale for safekeeping, Trentino has Vera stay the weekend and search for them in order to pass them along to Ciccolini and Pinky. Unfortunately, Mrs. Teasdale also has a second guest for the weekend, Firefly himself. You know, I hate it when Airbnbs overbook. Happened to me once, and let me tell you, it became very awkward come bath time. Ciccolini and Pinky wander around the house searching for the plans, and fortunately for them, Mrs. Teasdale wants Firefly to come and get the plans, so Ciccolini and Pinky both get the same idea to dress up like Firefly to covertly get the plans from Mrs. Teasdale after locking Firefly in a closet. And that's not the first time someone's shoved a mustachioed world leader into a cupboard.
But I am the Führer! Right, in you go.
It's also pretty important to note that at times like these that you can really tell that they're brothers, since Chico looks nearly identical to Groucho, lending a lot of credence to that rumor about animal crackers. The only thing that gives it away is the voice.
Oh, well, you see, maybe sometime I go to Italy and I'm practicing the language.
Unfortunately, because they came about their plans independently, and once Firefly escapes from the closet, there end up being 3 Fireflies wandering around. Not quite a swarm, but it'll do. Pinky mistakes a radio for the safe with the plans and accidentally blasts music. And he can't shut the radio up by hitting it with seltzer or smashing it. You know, They really don't make things like they used to. Good old Fredonian craftsmanship, eh? Firefly goes out to investigate and Pinky shatters a mirror while running, leading into one of the most well-known Marx Brothers bits, the mirror imitation, and while not invented specifically by the Marx Brothers for this movie, it's become the most well-known version and has been parodied by several films and TV shows over the years, including Tom and Jerry, Looney Tunes, The Patty Duke Show, and I Love Lucy, whose homage actually featured Harpo Marx himself. Remember that last one, because that's going to become relevant in a few movies from now. Naturally, despite the family resemblance and expert mimicking skills, something's gotta give. Ciccolini is arrested and court-martialed, but while he's on trial for espionage, he should really be on trial for the bad puns.
Isn't it true you tried to sell Fredonia's secret war code and plans?
Sure, I sold the code in 2 pair of planes.
Nah, kid, you know I love these jokes.
That's irrelevant.
Irrelevant? Hey, that's the answer. There's a whole lot of relevance in the circus.
Now I object. They used the same irrelevant joke back in Animal Crackers. But the most well-known segment of this trial is yet to come.
Yeah. Gentlemen, Ciccolini here may talk like an idiot and look like an idiot, but don't let that fool you. He really is an idiot.
Unfortunately, the trial is interrupted by the Sylvanian troops marching on Fredonia. Mrs. Teasdale comes to set up a friendly conference between Firefly and Trentino, but it goes about as well as you'd expect.
But suppose he doesn't? A fine thing that'll be. I hold out my hand and he refuses to accept it. I hold out my hand and that hyena refuses to accept it. Oh, you refuse to shake hands with me, eh? Oh!
You know, usually when you have an argument in your head, you're the one that usually wins. Of course you know, this means war. We get a good old-fashioned war song.
As the country's going to war. It is the country's going to war. And as the country's going to war, we're going to war.
And the last segment of the film features Groucho, Chico, Harpo, and Zeppo fighting the war while cycling through uniforms from nearly every well-known American war in history, which was either a boon for the costuming department if they had costumes to reuse from other films, or was a pain in the ass to recreate so many unique costumes for one sequence. First, we get Harpo Revere going out with his bugle to warn the people, but he gets a bit distracted. And not only is he parked in a loading and unloading zone, but he's managed to find the one blonde woman in town who's somehow also married to that lemonade vendor. He has better luck later, though, but it's only because he made her an offer she couldn't refuse. Firefly and his men go to protect Mrs. Teasdale, but things aren't looking good.
Remember, you're fighting for this woman's honor, which is probably more than she ever did.
And the legions of stock footage come from across the globe to save Fredonia. But that's not what gets them the victory. It's Trentino joining the war effort, and once they capture him and pelt him with fruit, he surrenders, before the brothers turn their fruits onto Mrs. Teasdale to stop her from singing Fredonia's national anthem as the film ends. At the time the film came out, it wasn't regarded very highly, but in the decades since, it's become a classic satire of war, ranked up there with The Great Dictator and Dr. Strangelove, or no, I'm not reading out the entire title. The highest praise the movie got upon release was that Benito Mussolini banned the film in Italy, but I imagine that had less to do with the content and more to do with him being offended by Chico's accent. Irving Thalberg's complaint was that, unlike their later films, which Thalberg was a producer of, this one was a gag fest without a love story, which isn't bad, but it weakens the film since it's just a collection of vignettes with nothing tying them together. It's why most of their films had the young lovers plotline. In addition, apparently the town of Fredonia, New York, were worried that the name of Fredonia in the film would cause damage to their reputation, although I would be more worried that rabid fans of the film might try to recreate moments from it in their town. We can live with people recreating the Joker stares, but I think the honest lemonade vendors of Fredonia don't need Harpo fans stampeding the town. But I think that the film is excellent. Despite being a gag fest with a little story to speak of, the gags are good, the music is good, and the brothers and Margaret Dumont are in top form. And as a final outing for Zeppo, I'm glad he stuck it out until this one, and went out on top. Another reason the film is so strong, I feel, is because it was directed by Leo McCarey, who had previously been a writer for Hal Roach's Our Gang series, which today is more known by the alternate title, The Little Rascals, and a director for several Laurel and Hardy shorts, so His sense of humor is definitely more in line with the vaudeville style that the Marx Brothers were known for. Duck Soup is a fantastic film, and would normally rate at a full 5 Marxes out of 5. However, because of the return of Margaret Dumont and the fact that Ciccolini hangs out with a dog for a few scenes, I'm raising the score to 7 Marxes out of 5. However, because there are only 5 Marx Brothers, I'll just have to settle for giving it a 5 out of 5. It's an excellent film in both a return to form after the fairly less than stellar Monkey Business and Horse Feathers, but it was also my first true exposure to the Marx Brothers, so it will always hold a special place in my heart. Next time, while Duck Soup is typically known today as their best film, the next film in their filmography is also held in pretty high regard, as the Marx Brothers, now down to 3 instead of 4, go out on the town for a nice night at the opera. See you next time.